everybody, and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're all doing very, very well. United are back in for Bruno Fernandes. I'm off. I'm not going to get excited about this, so don't worry. I'm just going to read what's out there today, and then we'll move on. Because actually, one of the big things I want to talk about tonight is actually the performance of Liverpool today and how it exposes not only Manchester United but every other football team in the Premier League that has no plan. Because I think when I watched Liverpool today, a lot of people said, well, Everton, it's embarrassing. And if you didn't see it, Liverpool in the FA Cup basically putting their reserves out. Klopp not bothered about the FA Cup. Everton go to Anfield with their best team. They lose 1-0. I mean, Liverpool literally had nobody playing who out of their first team, and they deserved to win the game. They were the better team in the second half. But the thing is, that's coaching. That is coaching, and I think I wouldn't tell anybody to go and watch that Liverpool-Everton game. But what I would say is this: when people are talking about United's lack of coaching, lack of experience, lack of a plan B, lack of a philosophy, lack of an idea, go and watch that Liverpool game on highlights or whatever, because that is coaching. That's Klopp and his coaches to a T. He can remove his whole first team, he can bring his reserves in, and they play exactly the same football, with the same philosophy, with the same press, with the same intensity, with the same quick movement of the ball. It was almost like, if you blurred your eyes a bit, you'd think it was Liverpool's first team, because it's coaching, it's a philosophy, and it doesn't matter, it goes right the way through the club. And I hate to say it, but that's football. That's how you do it. And United don't have that. We don't have that even with our first team. So that's coaching. That's what we were talking about yesterday. And that's when people say, how can you say it's coaching and not the players? Because that's when coaching works. When you take your whole team out, put a whole reserves in, but you still play the same way because you've been coached correctly. And that's what coaching is. And I don't want Liverpool to give me or you lessons in what coaching is, but today was a very good example of it. Anyway, let's talk about, did you see Spurs today? Jesus Christ, they were terrible. Same as Everton, says Tyrannical. Well, look, in relation to Mourinho, he got the sack. I think Mourinho's done. I think Mourinho's done at the top level, to be honest with you. But that's another conversation. Let's talk about this Bruno Fernandes thing in there, because we're all hoping that United are going to sign some players. And look, let's have a little trip down memory lane. United last season scouted Bruno Fernandes extensively. From the start to the end of the season, they scouted him extensively. Probably every single game. And he had a brilliant season. And we went into the summer, and as I said, I was told that United wanted Bruno Fernandes, that he wanted the move, and that's why all summer I was like, we'll get it. And then we didn't, because something changed. Now, there's two theories on this. One of them is that Bruno Fernandes was not impressed himself. He did an article about a week ago saying that he wasn't impressed with some of the offers he got and the situations of those clubs, but Spurs impressed him. Maybe he wasn't impressed with United. The other story is that ultimately, despite all the scouting and everything like that, Ollie decided that he didn't want to take a risk on a player like that. I don't know what the truth is. It's unfair to go with what the truth is. The latest, and this is coming from Goal, is that United are now back in the race for Bruno Fernandes, that there's a load of scouts heading over to Portugal to watch Sporting Lisbon this month, and they are considering a move for Bruno Fernandes again. Look, I personally choose not to get engaged in this story, because I think if Bruno Fernandes came to Manchester United, you would never get a more Ollie-in fan than me. If a manager of Manchester United brings Bruno Fernandes to Manchester United, I will happily sit back and say, there's your 2 years, mate, because as long as you're going to play him, I believe he's going to light the Premier League up. So, look, Ollie, if you're watching, sign Bruno Fernandes. You got Goldbridge on side, but that's not going to be a big thing, is it? But I would love United to sign Bruno Fernandes. I very rarely feel like this, but I feel that he is a player that would fit Manchester United like a glove, but will also fit the Premier League like a glove. And he will get a lot of goals and he will get a lot of assists. I think the last player I felt like this about was Fabinho. And look what happened with him. We didn't even sign him, but he's been fantastic. So I'd love it to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this, to me, just feels like yet another transfer window story where you take one thing, you take another thing, which is Manchester United, you put it together and you get a load of clicks on your article. And I think that's what that's about, because it's only coming from Goal. It's not even coming from the Portuguese press, who love to link us to somebody. So I don't think we're going to do it. I don't propose anybody gets excited about it, but I would love us to do it. And as I've said, nearly every week of this season, we will miss not signing Bruno Fernandes. And we've already seen that. I think it would have been perfect for us. I just feel that maybe if Ollie didn't fancy him, he didn't fancy him because he doesn't know anything about European football, much like Carrick, much like McKenna. I think they go for things that they know, which is either players he's managed in Norway or the Premier League, because there's no evidence that we're signing players outside of these isles, and that's a shame. But I'd love us to sign him. It's out there, hence we've got to talk about it. But for me, I'm not going to expect it. And I have fallen into that same thing that many people have fallen into now, which is until they're holding the shirt up, there's no point in believing it. Because with Haaland, they thought they'd got that deal done and they didn't. Don't bring the hope back, Mark. I don't want to sink with shit Bruno again. Hopefully we do sign someone. Our creativity is so poor. We need to sign in January, says Jay Singh. I'm not getting the hope up if you're listening. And Scouts FC, why do we need to send scouts out to watch Bruno Fernandes? They scouted him all of last season. Pathetic club, says Daniel Jefferson. Well, I was going to say that, Daniel. You've actually probably partly ruined what I was going to say anyway. Because what I was going to say is, we spent all last season scouting him. I mean, I haven't watched Sporting Lisbon this season, but I know Bruno Fernandes and I know exactly what sort of player he is. I mean, you can over-scout a player. I think he'd be perfect for United. I don't expect us to go and get him. We had the video this morning about the James Maddison thing for Lingard. I mean, look, this might upset you a little bit, but it's true. Imagine that Brendan Rodgers banged his head and said, I'd love to take Jesse Lingard and £45 million for James Maddison this month. Where do I sign, right? Leicester wouldn't do the deal anyway. Because even though we want to do that, 45 million plus Lingard for Maddison, Leicester would say to Rodgers, no. Because James Maddison's on 50 grand a week. Jesse Lingard's on 100 and something grand a week. So Leicester can't even afford Lingard's wages. That's the sad, scary thing. Not only would they not want him, nobody can bloody afford him. And this is something that United just do not learn their lesson with. We might not buy players as much as we should do, but when we do get hold of a player, we massively overpay. I mean, like this talk that and I like Luke Shaw, but apparently he's on between 150 and 200 grand a week. Luke Shaw, ridiculous money. You know, Phil Jones is on nearly 100 grand a week. That's 99 grand too much. But Jesse Lingard's on over 100 grand a week. Mata's on 150 grand a week. I mean, this is all reported, but, you know, people like James Maddison at Leicester are on 50 grand a week. And we don't just pay double what people should be on. We pay sometimes treble. But the problem is, if United want to move Phil Jones on, no one's going to pay him 100 grand a week. If we want to move Jesse Lingard on, no one's going to pay him 100 and something grand a week. And that's the thing. Even if Leicester, which they won't, said, hey, we'll do that deal. We think there's a player in Jesse Lingard. We think we can get the best out of him with some good coaching. We'll take you 45 million in Lingard for Maddison. They wouldn't be able to do the deal anyway because they can't afford his wages because we pay stupid wages for average talent. So that's always been a problem with United. Remember that horrible summer we had with Van Gaal where he sold, I think he got rid of Van Persie, Hernandez, Nani and Raphael, 4 players, and I think we only got 17 million for those 4 players. I mean, you'd want more than that for them now, and most of them are bloody retired. But then, but we had to let them go because of their wages. We couldn't get a decent transfer fee because their wages are so big, because we stupidly overpay on wages. So we've always been a contradiction there. We don't like spending money on players, but when we get them in, we overpay on wages. It's really weird. Mark, what would you do with the Henderson situation, says Dib Izza. I'm glad you asked me about that. Hey Mark, thanks for the show, says Sherzit Daz. You do a great job with all the news and analysis. Nobody's coming to this club unless the ownership changes hands. It's pathetic. Ollie was hired when Zidane was available. Tells the story. And Nick P says, Mark, can we start Bruno Watch? Track his movements across Europe, a bit like Spring Watch, but with less badgers. I'd love to do Bruno Watch. I would love to do Bruno Watch. But the United Stand posted a statement in TWTR. What happened? I don't know what TWTR is. Kartik Srinvasan. You'd have to clarify that for me. But yeah, I'd love to do a Bruno Fernandes watch, but I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it at all. So I don't see that happening. But so going back to that question about Dean Henderson, on loan at Sheffield United, doing very, very well. Ollie obviously saying last night with regards to De Gea, his position could potentially be in danger. I just don't see this. We've just spent a lot of money on David De Gea. And he will be on big wages as well. De Gea will be on, 200 grand a week? More than that, maybe, I don't know. We've just got him on a big contract when he was potentially going to leave. We're going to start dropping players who are on that sort of money, who is potentially one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I think David De Gea, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, they're all suffering from the same thing. There is absolutely no cohesion in that back five at all. Nobody knows what anybody's doing. I think a lot of it's coming from the training ground. I don't think the goalkeeping coaching of De Gea is good. There's been a lot of change around that. If you look at it behind the scenes, the goalkeeping coach is very important, and there's been a lot of change around De Gea there. There's also this zonal marking, which is absolutely car crash, and we keep nearly conceding or do concede from corners. I think that the defence has got no confidence. They are not together, and they've got no confidence, and they've got no, I'm trying to think of the word, there's no communication between them as well. And that's the thing, sometimes you can construct a defence. I mean, we spent £130 million on our defence in the summer, 50 for Wan-Bissaka, 80 for Harry Maguire, and you could argue that defence is worse than it was under Mourinho, and yet we've spent the money on it. And I think, although I think Mourinho's done, I think if you'd given Mourinho, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, we'd be defending a hell of a lot better. We're not defending well because when they're not being coached well, and you can see that in their eyes. They're scared. They are scared, and that's why we're making so many mistakes. And I think, you know, I think Wan-Bissaka's been brilliant, but he still sometimes doesn't look great. Lindelof, Maguire, De Gea, Luke Shaw have made loads of mistakes this season. So I feel that a lot of it comes down to the coaching again, and it's impacting all of them. But I think with De Gea, you know, I would stick with De Gea. I would. We're sending scouts out now to sign players in the next 3 weeks. We take ages to get deals done anyway. Best we're going to get is Longstaff and maybe Campbell if Ed feels generous. Ollie looks stressed, says Joe and Daniel. And Kuno9T says, hey Mark, told you I'd be here whenever possible. Please promote Glazers Out once again. Very proud of how far this channel has come since your Duncan Edwards tribute. Thank you, pal. Well, look, what seems to be coming out of Manchester United is that there was never an intention to sign any midfielders. The injuries to McTominay and Pogba have rattled the club, and they've done no preparation for midfielders, but they now need a midfielder, which is why they're suddenly jumping all around. So that to me seems to be the truth, because there is no idea on what we're going to sign in January, and we know we need two midfielders, but nobody's got a clue. The press haven't got a clue. They've not been briefed. So if the press aren't being briefed on who we're going to sign, because we, like you rightly said, we always know when United are going to sign a player 4 weeks before they come. You've got to go. We know with United, you've got to go through the 4 weeks of talks and stuff where you know we're going to sign them, and then they hold the shirt up. We're not even having that, and there's only 4 weeks in this window, and that is because United. You just read between the lines anyway, but you know this. We were never signing a midfielder in January. There was never any talk of us signing a midfielder. We were never linked to a midfielder in January. It was all about Haaland. Haaland didn't happen. Maybe we can do a striker, but they need to do a midfielder as well. And there is no talk of a midfielder. So they are now chucking scouts around. I mean, last week, Draughty told me that he'd been told that United were pulling all their scouts in for a big meeting last week to try and find midfielders because they haven't prepared. We don't prepare because we weren't intending to sign a midfielder. It's only because McTominay and Pogba are injured, which, as I said, and I'll keep saying it again, that's disgusting, because Haaland, Herrera and Fellaini left nearly a year ago and we still haven't replaced them, and we had no intention of doing it in January because it all comes down to this. They don't want to spend it. Twitter is Twitter, Mark. United Stand posted a tweet, says Kartik's friend. Yeah, but I don't know what tweet it is. That's what I mean. I don't know what tweet you're on about. Sorry, Mark, we spent 60 million, not 130 million. Maguire and Wan-Bissaka minus Lukaku. Yeah, but you're being pedantic there, Sergio Daz. What I'm saying is, what Wan-Bissaka cost 50 million and Harry Maguire cost 80 million, that's 130. I didn't mention net spend. We spent 130 million pounds on our defence. I agree, it was a 60 million net spend, but we spent 130 million pounds on defence. We did spend that money. Naked Cody, Mark, I feel that they're not going to buy anyone until the summer because they're going to let Ollie finish the year and bring Poch over the summer, says Naked Cody. I mean, that's something to bear in mind. If we don't sign anybody, this season's going to be a write-off again. we won't get top 4. And if they're planning on doing that, then you might be right. You might be right. Ollie might be going. But I mean, look, it's I mean, I very rarely go quiet, but it's very hard to read what's going on at United. I to be honest with you, because of what I know, I would fear that it's all just all over the place and mayhem. I don't think that means Ollie's going. I don't think Ollie will be sacked this season or over the summer. I think they will try and spend money for him because that's what they want to do, and I think that they like to think that, you know, Ollie's manipulative and they can manipulate Ollie and they can spend very little money. Kent Even Goodstad, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. Thank you for joining. You can do that by clicking the join button. But also, I wanted to talk about as well, Poch's won nothing, says Rusty Ballon not. Well, yeah, look, if people want... If people want Poch as their manager, I can understand why they do. But I said this today, and look, I've sort of kept it back, although I did tweet it. Emmanuel Ozgebi says, people need to realise that as long as the club's in this state, the performances aren't going to improve. I feel for players like Wan-Bissaka and Maguire. And a lot of people say to me, oh, you're Ollie in. I'm not Ollie in, and I'm not going to chant Ollie out. I am this. I'm Mark Goldbridge. No, I am this. I believe that if you sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tomorrow and then you appointed Pochettino the next day, I think in a year's time we would be saying Pochettino out. Maybe even less. I think the patience of United fans now, because of the last 6 years, and we've had 4 managers, I just don't think we've got any patience anymore. And I'm not saying that's the reason, it's not. But I think we would be Ollie out. I think we would be Poch out within a year because he wouldn't be able to improve this team. Because I think Jurgen Klopp is a great coach, and I think if he walked into this team, he wouldn't be able to improve this team. Because if you look at the way Klopp plays with Liverpool, or Pep plays with City, or Pochettino played with Spurs, you need certain players to play that. You can't get Phil Jones, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata to play the way Liverpool play. They just don't have the intelligence on the ball or speed across the ground to play it, or the stamina. They just don't. So you bring Klopp in, or Poch in, everyone gets excited saying we've got a really good manager, but the club go, you can't sell those players because we can't get anyone to pay their wages, so they've got to stay, and you're not buying until you sell. So you get stuck in this cycle. I mean, people keep saying we can't get... We've still got the deadwood. Every manager gets the deadwood, whether it's Phil Jones, whoever. It's because we can't get rid of it. And the club say things like, you're not buying till you've sold, but you can't sell. So you get stuck with the same players. You've also got a board that doesn't really want to buy. So if Klopp walked into United tomorrow, he decided he's had enough of winning Liverpool's first Premier League title in 30 years, and he says, I'll take this job, then he would have to say, I need to get rid of 6 players straight away, and you need to give me 300 million to bring 6 in. And this will be a 3-year build, and next summer I'll probably get rid of another 4, and I'll need another 4 in. And then the summer after that, probably need another 2 and another 2 out. It's a 3-year plan. I want to bring 11 in and take 11 out, and I need about 500 million. That's what United need. They're not going to allow that to happen. So everyone who says, let's get Poch in, let's get this in, let's get that in, unless they're going to get given that, it isn't going to happen. Magic Eye says, we'll probably make a desperate signing that won't be successful. Ollie looks so bad. I feel like he really loves the club. Resign and expose the owners. And welcome to Joseph Dawson, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. Thank you, Joseph. Marius Larson says, what we actually could do for 200 million is sell Matic, Mata, Smalling for 45 million. Makes it 245. Buy Ndidi, Grealish, Bruno Fernandes, sell Pogba, replace him with buying Ruben Neves plus Maddison. We need a director of football. We do. We know that. And Dazu W says, United have over 20 scouts. They must just sit in a house. Then window opens. They start running around like headless chickens. Club is run wrong. Shirzet Jazz says, it's time for Julian Nagelsmann. Stroke Poch. Ollie is an apprentice. And Iska Sperm says, why change manager when Woodward is the biggest problem? Which brings me back to what I was going to say there. I don't think Ollie's the right man. I do think he's out of his depth. I don't think he can do this job. But I also don't think anybody else can do this job. I think somebody could come in and do it slightly better. But is slightly better what we want. We want Manchester United back where it should be, fighting for titles. And we're not going to do that without a director of football, without Woodward taken away from footballing decisions, without the Glazers giving proper money to the club, without us removing the deadwood, without a better medical department, without better recruitments, without better coaching. There's so many things that need to be done in that club. It isn't... I will never start saying Ollie out, Ollie out, Ollie out, because I've done that. I've done LVG out, I've done Moyes out, and I've done Jose out, and we still are in the same situation. We're not improving. So Ollie out to me is Ollie irrelevant, because he is almost irrelevant. He is out of his depth. He's not a very good coach. He's trying his best. He's desperate to succeed because he's a fan of the club. But removing him and replacing him won't change anything. In a year's time, I would put good money on as all saying, get the next manager out. Because we've got to realise that this problem is not about just changing a manager. And I'm not saying the manager doesn't need to be changed. He probably does. I probably would. If I was director of football, I'd probably sack Ollie. But we haven't got a director of football. We haven't got a board that wants to spend money. We haven't got a competent coaching staff. We haven't got a competent board. We've got so many things are wrong that you know, dropping a manager into that, you know, it's like giving a paracetamol to a cancer patient. It might make it hurt a little bit less, but it ain't going to solve their problems. And that's the problem with Manchester United. I mean, Ollie is a problem, but replacing him, like I say, it's just giving a paracetamol to a cancer patient. United is riddled with cancer, I suppose, in an analogy way. And we can't treat it by just changing the manager. It's the whole thing. But unfortunately, the people who can change it are the problem. So I was asked this on That's Football this afternoon. I was doing a watch-along for Liverpool versus Everton. And somebody said, how many years do you think it's going to be before Manchester United get back to where they need to be? And I said, even if we started today, 6 years. And people were like, 6 years? I can't be dealing with 6 years. And I said, I hope I'm going to be wrong. But when Sir Alex Ferguson retired, we expected to win the title the year after. We didn't. Then we got Van Gaal after Moyes, and we thought, oh, maybe he can do it over the next year or two. Then under Mourinho, it was 2 or 3, and now under Ollie, it's still a 3-year plan. But I think it's a 6-year plan. Of course, Poch would improve this team. Are you mad? Look at what he did with Spurs while spending nothing, says Kian Brady. I've just explained it, Kian, so hopefully you understand it now. Ahmad Hamada says, I thought Woodward will go all in on transfers because he can't afford not to be in the Champions League next season as we lose a lot of sponsorship money. Why the slack then? And that is true. And we've spoken about that a couple of weeks ago. United are going to lose a lot of money in the summer because 2 years out of the Champions League means a lot of the sponsors drop off what they have to pay. So it makes total sense to spend money to accumulate. But incompetence of the club again. I think we can get into top 4 with what we've got, and we can't. Poch inherited a terrible Spurs side, yet managed to make them good, all that while having a net spend of almost 0. You're talking rubbish, mate, says Shady Abanazar. Well, I'm glad the Poch fan club is invading the United stand today, but you're not changing my mind because you're not actually listening to the question. I think Pochettino's a good manager, but you're not listening. You're not listening. I'm telling you, Manchester United Football Club is run so badly that Pochettino, I think, would fail within a year because he wouldn't be able to improve that team. And you're saying, well, he went into Spurs with a crap squad and this, that and the other, but I don't see that being applicable to Manchester United, I'm afraid. Spurs are not Manchester United. Spurs haven't won a bloody title in God knows how long. Spurs are not as big as Manchester United. The pressure at Spurs when he went in there is not the same as Manchester United. Spurs are not on the front page of every fucking sports website and everything. Manchester United are box office. They are box office every week. The press conferences are packed out. Everything we do is super analysed. We've got millions of fans. The pressure that Pochettino was under Spurs was zilch. At Manchester United, it will be magnified and it will not be good enough. And he will not be able to succeed because he will not have the players, the coaching, the setup, the whole thing will not be good enough for him to succeed. And that is why, for me, all this Ollie out stuff, although I agree with people being like that, I still have massive doubts that it will change that much. Do you think Haaland didn't sign because he knew Ollie wasn't going to be here for long, says Extra Z? I did almost think, well, was that a factor? I don't know. Kunal Biswas says, I disagree. All you need is a good manager. Case in point, Liverpool, Tottenham, Leicester and Sheffield United. Liverpool and Tottenham don't have a good board. You know, if you're going to put a comment up, you might want to do your research, especially around Liverpool and Tottenham. They do have a good board. Liverpool's board is absolutely superb. They've took 10 million out over the last 8 years and totally restructured that football club. So I can't come back other than to say that you're wrong with that one. And Leicester have got a very good board as well. So, Ket, Christoph, Solberg, finally you said what makes sense. Changing manager won't change anything. I think, look, I must be honest. I think if Ollie was sacked tonight and Pochettino came in tomorrow, we would probably get to fourth. I think there would be an improvement, but we want to be first. We want to be fighting for titles, and that's not going to... I don't think any manager can come into this club in the current state that it's in, with how it's run, and succeed, because they will not get the resources. I love this club, but I'm sick and tired of being Banter FC. What do you think is the first thing we should do to get the club back on track, says Eduardo Balanes. And Kian Brady says, if Ollie can have us fifth with this team, imagine what Poch could do. We'd be comfortably in the top four playing great football. Nah. I don't think you've been watching Manchester United, mate. I mean, so you genuinely think one man can come into this club and get that squad playing comfortably top four football? Where have you been, mate? Where have you been for the last 3 years? Most of these players are the same players we've had for 3 years. The squad's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And it needs players kicking out, and it needs £300 to £400 million spending straight away. We are not comfortably a top four team. We haven't got the players. We just haven't got the players, and they're not players that can be improved. They're not. I mean, Greenwood can. Some of the younger players can, but a lot of them can't be improved. I think this, going back to what I said there, somebody said, how long do you think it's going to be before United are fighting for titles? I think it's 6 years. I do. Because under the current regime, if you got the right man in, I think it would take them 6 years, because they're not going to get 4 out the door and 4 in the door. And 4 out the door and 4 in the door every transfer window. I mean, look at Ollie. In the summer, he got no midfielders. In January, he's got no midfielders. So if he gets midfielders in the summer, it's a year too late. So everything is elongated by this board. They're so slow at everything. And I don't think people take this on board either. Our board is so slow. There is no ruthlessness or efficiency. It's slow process. And I think under this current regime, if you got the right manager in, and they were given the right time, and they were allowed to get players in and out, and it was actually done, 6 years. If, for some miracle, the board disappeared, and we were taken over by people, like Man City have got, and some people wouldn't want that, and they just came in and said, look, get rid of them, we'll write them off, they're not good enough, here's a load of money to bring the players in you want, and maybe 3 years. But I think we're a long way off. And it surprises me that anybody thinks that we're not. We're nowhere near. We're nowhere near being a title-winning side. Absolutely nowhere near. We're not even close to challenging. I mean, the closest we've been to challenging for a title was Mourinho's second 2 years ago, and we were 20-something points off top. It was almost embarrassing to say we came second because the gap was so big. And I think if we can be anywhere near a title before 6 years' time, I'll be very, very happy. But I just think we're so far off. I mean, Red Diamond says, I think we're 4 to 6 years. And people would say, oh, you're so negative. I thought, what's negative about that? That's realistic. I mean, if anything, if we do it in less time, great. But I just don't see any sprout of positivity that we're going to turn this around in the immediate future. And I don't necessarily think changing the manager would do that. I mean, what would I do? I'd like to see a total restructure of the medical department, because that's been a shambles for 8 years. I'd see a total restructuring of recruitment with a director of football the head of it. I would see a total restructuring of the coaching, because I think there's way too much experience and jobs for the boys in there. I would like to see a restructuring of the board, where certain people go and focus on the business side and some people are involved in the football side but have football background. That would be a start. And on top of that, you'd need to remove the dead wood and cut your losses and start planning to build a team over the next 6 years. But people like your Matters and your Matic, they're not, and your Ashley Youngs and your Phil Jones, they're not going to be here in 6 years, so go. The journey is the journey. If you're going to drop off the journey at some point, there's no point in being here. Thoughts on signing Estudiantes forward Zilcho, says Craig Warby. Not got a clue. Never heard of him. And what manager would you like to come? I find that disrespectful to do that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is our manager. That is the case. I've not even given it any thoughts. I really haven't. What I have said is when people offer up names, Pochettino, to me, I like Pochettino. I don't like the fact that he doesn't use wingers, and I think United is all about width. So that would be a concern to me. Yeah. But I always quite liked Laurent Blanc. I've not looked at what he's been doing for a year. I always liked Ancelotti. He's probably past it, isn't he? And he's at Everton now. The Ajax manager's good. But that's probably one of the reasons United aren't looking. But although I think United would like Pochettino, wouldn't they? Players don't want to play under Ole. That's why we're struggling to get players in. With a better manager, everything changes, says Kean Brady. Oh, Kean, you're on one tonight. I mean, the players don't want to play under Ole. I don't think this Manchester United squad have ever been so happy. They love him. They're just, that's just not enough, is it? Sayed Ilyas Al United says, and United drew 1-1 at home to an Everton team that just got outfought and outmatched by Liverpool's C team. Would we have beaten the Scousers today? I don't think we would have beaten Liverpool today. I don't think we would have beaten that Liverpool reserve team today, because I think what was so impressive with them is that they were just so in tune with the philosophy and coaching of the manager. And as I said, it was like, who are these players? Because they're playing exactly the same as the first team play. It was amazingly impressive from a coaching point of view. And that's your example of how coaching makes a difference, because it isn't always the quality of the players you've got if you can coach. And we've seen this before. We've seen teams come to Old Trafford who are in lower divisions, players off the park, even though they've got nowhere near as good players as us, because they've been coached well. Sheffield United are a prime example. They've got no stars, but they're comfortably in the top 10 in the Premier League because their coaching is absolutely bang on. Coaching is so important, and Manchester United should have the best coaches, and we don't. We watch Manchester United play. We never get a sustained period of attack that excites us. Forever we're going, that was crap half, that was a crap half. We're not coached well. We're not a well-coached side. And if you've got good coaching, it makes you a better side. Of course it does. And we saw that with Liverpool today. That was such an impressive performance. And I hate to say it, but it was. Because that was their reserve team and they played like their first team. I agree with you. I can't be positive when the club I love is in a shambles. I don't see how people can be positive. The board is rubbish, says Eduardo Balanes. Yeah, but I do think that we do need to sort of... I just think that I personally think that there is too much focus on Solskjaer at the moment, when he is just a fan of this football club, who loves this football club, who isn't going to walk away from this football club, who wants to be successful but just isn't good enough to do it at the moment. And that's the situation. He's been put into that situation by the board. He's not been helped by the board. He's not been surrounded by experience. He's not been given money. And I still don't think he'd be good enough if he had all those things, but he really is, swimming out there without a life raft, and I do sympathise with it. I do get frustrated with him, of course. He's not good enough for the job, is he? Let's be honest. But he's not I don't think he's the reason why we will continue to fail, and I don't think changing the manager is enough. But I know a lot of you do think a manager change would be enough. If we assume Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's use of youth players in game is correct, how else would you change his in-game management? If we assume Ole Gunnar's use of youth players in game is correct, how else would you change his in-game management? I mean, MS Smiley makes a good point there. I mean, what would you choose? What would you change about Manchester United in relation to their coaching? I just don't think. I don't think he responds quickly. And funnily enough, this is something Spurs fans said a lot about Pochettino. Ole doesn't respond quickly to things. He doesn't respond quickly to danger. Forget the game against Wolves. So we played Arsenal. We won 2-0. And I think after half an hour, it was very clear that wasn't working with Lingard. And Lampard played them literally 3 days before and made a sub at half an hour. Now, that is ruthless. And I'd like to see that from Ole. But it definitely should have happened at half time. And he didn't. He didn't do it. He doesn't change things. I wouldn't even say he doesn't change things quick enough. He doesn't change things. There is no plan B. We saw it with Wolves yesterday as well. They completely changed their tactics from first half to second half, and we just continued the same. Which is all right if you're winning 2-0, because you think, well, look, they've changed. They're getting the better of the game. Let's hope we've got enough energy and enough of a lead to get over the line and win it. But when you're 0-0 and a team changes it and starts to dominate the game and you don't respond, it's only going to go one way. You're either going to get over the line for a draw or you're going to lose. I don't think he changes it quick enough. I think a lot of his substitutions are just done for energy reasons and not tactical reasons, and they tend to happen quite late in the game. And I think he's got an obsession with this formation that I don't think is the right formation. I personally don't think 4-2-3-1 works. He came into the job and it was a 4-3-3 with one holding midfielder and two box-to-box midfielders and the front three. We now have the front three, two holding midfielders and a number 10. We've got a bad history with number 10s, Manchester United. We've never really played with a number 10 and it's never really worked. And we've got a bad history of buying them, whether it's Mkhitaryan, Mata, Kagawa. It doesn't tend to work. And yet all season we've been playing with a number 10. And look, people say, well, Lingard, Mata and Pereira aren't good enough, and they're not. But we're not a club that plays with a number 10. We've never really done it and it doesn't work. So I think formation has always been a problem for me this season. I would have just gone back to the one holding midfielder because I actually think Matic did that role quite well last year. But when you play two holding midfielders, it's a bit like playing three centre-backs. You know, when we played three centre-backs and we always look a mess? Because I think it breeds confusion. And I think two holding midfielders does that as well. I think if you stuck Matic or Fred or McTominay on their own as the holding midfielder, they know they've got to hold the midfield and shield it. And the two go back and forward. I think the formation's been wrong all season, to be honest with you. Jordan Such, if United has so desperately wanted Bruno, it's the 5th of January. How now? Scouted him since God knows when. He would have been in the door, but United by now. We'll probably get Longstaff this month whilst announcing Lingard's contract. Jordan, if we get Longstaff, we just have to back the lad, but I don't think he's good enough. Abdullah Atani says, Mark, it is true. Are we signing a number 10? If it's true, I'll donate to charity £1,000. I know nothing. I know nothing. And look, you do get told little bits, and I don't like to bring it out because people start saying the only source you've got is HP in your cupboard. And we have been told stuff. 2 years ago, we, the United stand, knew we were signing Alexis Sanchez a week before anybody else because I got it from Arsenal. But you know, Johnny Evans in the summer, I was told because somebody works at Leicester. So you do get information. I have no information at the moment. And the funny thing is, I don't think anybody else does, which means one of two things. We're not signing anybody, or they're desperately running around like bloody flies around a bloody packet of, I don't know. Couldn't even think of anything there. And they're trying to desperately find somebody at the last minute. So I think we're either getting nobody or we're going to do a last minute risky signing, which doesn't fill you with confidence either way, does it? We should be coming into it, like Jordan Such says, with a plan that we just go and carry out that plan. But the problem is we weren't signing midfielders in January. It's only the injuries that have forced us to do it. Rodgers, Lampard and Arteta have created a style of play with their teams as soon as possible. Our players look like they've never played together. It's worrying, says Shahin Alvis. And Abdullah Attar, yeah, we've read that one as well. Look, it is what it is. We are where we are. Transfer Daily is back tomorrow at 7 a.m. We are live again at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. I'm going to do my Manchester United Man City preview tomorrow lunchtime. So there's a lot going on tomorrow. And then obviously on Tuesday, we're going to play Man City. I mean, look, I'll talk about it on the preview tomorrow. It'll be just typical of us to go and win. It will be typical of us to go and win that because we all think we're going to get done over. So it'll be typical that we go and win it. But thanks everyone for watching. Please do smash a like on the video for everybody who has watched. It's flown by again. I think we've discussed a lot of things as per usual, and I'm looking with interest at this January transfer window. But I do think that, you know, the great thing about these shows is that you go into it, you start off on something, and while you're talking and I'm talking, while I'm talking and you're commentating, the brain works about thinking about things that I never thought I was going to talk about. And I've sort of come out this show with some resolution on the January transfer window that I didn't have before it. So thanks to everyone for that. And my stance on the January transfer window now is this: nobody knows about any signings. Nobody's getting any leaks. You know, Wan-Bissaka, 4 weeks before we signed him, we knew. Same with Harry Maguire. You know, we know this. None of that's happening, and there's only 4 weeks in this window. So United don't have any targets. So we're either not signing anybody or we're going to sign somebody last minute, rushed. What would you rather do? Would you rather get nobody or take a massive risk on somebody? Depends who the risk is for me, because if it's Longstaff, I'd rather have no one. If it's Bruno Fernandes, sign me up, Ollie, I'm going to be your cheerleader for the next 2 years. But it won't be somebody that good. It won't be somebody that good. It's a bit of a shambles, I think. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the morning at 7 a.m. for Transfer Daily. Make sure you subscribe. Bottom right hand corner, get your notifications on, which you can do by clicking the bell if you have subscribed and ticking to get all notifications. And I'll see you tomorrow. A busy day, a busy week for United. You know, there's so many games coming in. I did want to talk about something about... I'll save that for tomorrow. We'll do that on tomorrow's show, on the preview. I've starred it. You're all stars. I'll speak to you soon.